The Chicago wind cut through my jacket as I hustled down Michigan Avenue, the scent of deep dish pizza from Giordano's wrapping around me like an old friend. I was late for work again, not because of traffic or train delays, but because I'd spent 20 minutes trying to find a shirt that didn't strain against my stomach. At 32, I weighed 347 pounds, and my life had become a series of calculations. Which route had the fewest stairs, which chair would hold my weight, which excuse would explain why I couldn't join colleagues for happy hour. Arthur Moretti, creative genius and timekeeper extraordinaire, Lydia announced as I pushed through the glass doors of Vertex Design Studio. Her smile never seemed to judge, which only made me feel worse. She was the kind of person who made Chicago winters bearable, warm, bright, and completely out of my league. Traffic was brutal, I lied, setting my laptop bag on my desk and ignoring how my breath came heavy from the short walk from the parking garage. Sure it was, she winked. Hey, we need your magic on the Northside Hospital rebrand. The meeting's at 2. I nodded, already planning which oversized chair in the conference room I'd claim. These were the thoughts that consumed my day. Not creative solutions for clients, but strategies for navigating a world that seemed built for smaller bodies. My office became my sanctuary. While my designs won awards and brought in clients, my personal life remained empty, except for the delivery apps on my phone. Every evening followed the same pattern. Work until exhaustion, order enough food for 2, telling myself I'd save half for tomorrow, eat until the shame set in, then promise myself tomorrow would be different. That night, scrolling through Instagram, I paused on a photo of myself from college, still heavy but nowhere near my current size, smiling with actual joy rather than the performative humor I'd perfected. I was the office clown, always ready with a self-deprecating joke before anyone else could make one. Why did the designer cross the road? To get away from the buffet, I'd quip, watching colleagues laugh while never quite meeting my eyes. The next morning, my primary care physician, Dr. Patel, looked at my chart with concern that she couldn't quite mask. The annual physical I'd postponed 3 times couldn't be delayed any longer. Arthur, your blood pressure is 168/95, and your blood tests show pre-diabetic levels. Your liver function is concerning, indicating early fatty liver disease. Her voice was gentle but firm. This isn't about aesthetics anymore. At this trajectory, you're looking at serious health complications within 5 years, possibly sooner. Something about the clinical certainty in her voice cut through the layers of defense I'd built. Not 5 years if I don't change, but 5 years, period. A ticking clock. I've tried everything, I said, hearing the defeat in my voice. Every diet, every program. I lose 20 pounds, then gain back 30. Dr. Patel nodded. The diet industry thrives on failure. But this isn't just about weight loss. It's about addressing why you're using food the way you are. She handed me a card. This is Dr. Rivera, a psychologist who specializes in eating behaviors, and this is a nutritionist who works with him. I'd like you to see both. I stared at the card, thinking of the thousands I'd already spent on miracle solutions. Does insurance cover this? Partially. I won't lie. It's an investment. But what's the alternative cost? Walking home through Millennium Park, I watched families picnicking, couples jogging together, a group of friends playing frisbee, all these lives that seemed impossibly distant from mine. My phone buzzed with a notification from my bank. My account was overdrawn. Again. The financial stress of living in downtown Chicago on a designer's salary was compounded by the small fortune I spent on delivery food. That night I called my grandmother in her nursing home in Little Italy, our weekly ritual. Nonna Lucia, at 86, remained the only person who never made me feel judged. You sound tired, Arthur, she said, her accent still thick after 60 years in America. Just work, I lied. You remember what your grandfather used to say? Il cibo è medicina o veleno, dipende da come lo usi. Food is medicine or poison. It depends on how you use it. Nonna, not you too with the diet talk. No, not diet. When we came to America, we were poor. Food was love, celebration, family. Now food is entertainment, punishment. You eat alone in your apartment every night. This is not how Morettis live." Her words stung because they were true. My relationship with food had become twisted, divorced from both nourishment and pleasure. "Come on Sunday," she insisted. "I'm teaching a cooking class at the community center. Real Italian cooking, not that Olive Garden nonsense." I almost refused. Public spaces meant stares, judgments, the mental calculation of whether I'd fit in the chairs. But something about Dr. Patel's 5-year countdown had shaken me. "Okay, Nonna, I'll be there." Later that night, I found myself staring at Lydia's Instagram. She'd posted about a local cooking class she was taking. For a wild moment, I considered sending her a message about Nonna's class, inviting her along. My finger hovered over the screen before I closed the app. Who was I kidding? Women like Lydia didn't date men who had to shop in specialized stores, who couldn't walk up a flight of stairs without getting winded. I fell asleep that night with the taste of shame bitter in my mouth, but for the first time in years, a tiny seed of something else had taken root. Not hope exactly, but possibility. Something had to change, and maybe, just maybe, I could be the one to change it. The community center in Little Italy buzzed with activity that Sunday morning. I arrived early, partly to help Nonna set up, but mostly to scope out the seating situation. Relief washed over me when I saw sturdy wooden chairs without arms, small victories in a world of constant accommodation. "Arthur!" Nonna called from the kitchen area. Despite her age, she moved with purpose, setting out ingredients with the precision of a surgeon. "Come, wash your hands. You're my assistant today." I hadn't planned on participating, just observing, but Nonna's tone left no room for negotiation. As I washed my hands, the door opened, and my heart stopped. Lydia walked in, her curly hair pulled back, wearing jeans and a simple t-shirt. "Arthur?" She looked as surprised as I felt. "I didn't know you'd be here. Is this your grandmother's class? The one from Instagram?" Nonna had an Instagram account. Before I could process this information, she was already introducing herself to Lydia, speaking that unique blend of English and Italian that constituted her everyday speech. "Sit, sit," Nonna instructed everyone as more participants arrived. "Today, we learn to make food that nourishes, not just fills. There is a difference." For the next 2 hours, Nonna guided us through making pasta from scratch, not the heavy, cream-laden American version, but simple spaghetti aglio e olio, pasta with olive oil, garlic, red pepper flakes, and a sprinkle of parsley. The portion was modest by American standards, served with a small side salad dressed in lemon and oil. "In Italy, we eat to live, not live to eat," she explained. "We enjoy every bite. We sit together, we talk. Food is communion, not consumption." Working beside Lydia, I felt self-conscious at first, aware of how my shirt strained against my stomach, how I sweated more easily than others. But as we kneaded dough and chopped garlic, something shifted. The focus wasn't on how we looked eating, but on creating something together. When we finally sat to enjoy our creation, Nonna insisted on no phones, no distractions. Taste each bite. This is meditation. The simplicity of the dish surprised me. How few ingredients could create such satisfaction. I realized I'd forgotten what real hunger and satiation felt like, constantly fluctuating between emotional emptiness and physical overfullness. "Your grandmother is amazing," Lydia said as we cleaned up. "Would you want to get coffee sometime? I'd love to hear more about Italian cooking traditions." The invitation caught me off guard. Sure, that would be great." Later, walking Nonna back to her nursing home, she squeezed my arm. "That girl likes you. She's just being friendly, Nonna." "Arthur, I may be old, but my eyes work fine. Now, about what the doctor told you." I stopped walking. "How did you know about that?" "You think Dr. Patel doesn't call me. She's worried. I'm worried." She patted my cheek. "But worry doesn't help. Action helps. Come back next Sunday, and Wednesday we cook at my place. No more eating alone." That week passed differently than others. Instead of ordering takeout, I attempted to recreate Nonna's simple pasta. The result wasn't perfect, but the act of cooking, of caring enough to feed myself properly, felt like a small revolution. On Wednesday, in Nonna's tiny apartment, she showed me how to make her minestrone, a vegetable soup that had sustained our family through poverty in post-war Italy. As we chopped and simmered, she shared stories I'd never heard about my father's childhood, about my grandfather's struggle with alcohol, about how food had been both salvation and curse for generations of Morettis. "Your father," she said hesitantly, "he struggled too, with his weight, with feeling enough, before the accident." This was new information. My father had died when I was 12, a construction accident that my mother rarely discussed. In my memories, he was big like me, but I'd never considered he might have fought the same battles. Mum never mentioned that. Nonna's eyes grew distant. "Your mother?" She blamed his weight for the heart attack that made him dizzy on the scaffolding. It wasn't true. The autopsy showed a congenital heart defect, but grief needs somewhere to go. She stirred the soup slowly. "This is why she pushes you about your weight, why things have been so difficult between you. She's afraid to lose you too." The revelation hit me like a physical blow. My mother's constant criticism of my weight, her sending me diet books every Christmas, her inability to visit without commenting on my appearance. It all stemmed from fear, not disappointment. That weekend, I met Lydia for coffee. To my surprise, conversation flowed easily as we discussed everything from design trends to Chicago politics. When she mentioned wanting to try a new hiking trail along Lake Michigan, I found myself agreeing to join her, despite my fears about keeping up. The following Sunday at Nonna's class, she taught us about portion control through traditional Italian serving customs. In America, everything is supersized. In Italy, we savor small amounts, quality over quantity. That night, I called Dr. Rivera and made my first appointment. Something was shifting inside me, not a dramatic epiphany, but a quiet awakening to possibilities beyond the prison I'd built for myself. The hike with Lydia nearly broke me. By the halfway point, my shirt was soaked with sweat, my breath coming in painful gasps, and my ankles screaming in protest. I'd expected her to politely suggest turning back, to realize what a mistake it was to spend time with someone like me. Instead, she slowed her pace without comment and pointed out native plants along the trail. "I'm sorry," I finally managed, leaning against a tree. "I'm not exactly in hiking shape." She shrugged. "Neither was I when I started. 3 months ago, I couldn't make it up the stairs to my apartment without stopping." She pulled up an older photo on her phone. Lydia, perhaps 20 pounds heavier, but still nowhere near my size. "Small steps, right? We can turn back if you want, but I'm enjoying the company." We didn't turn back. We completed the trail at a slower pace, and though the physical discomfort was intense, something else felt even stronger: pride. I had finished something difficult, something I would normally have avoided entirely. My first session with Dr. Rivera was less cathartic than I'd expected. No dramatic breakthrough, just methodical questions about my history with food, my family dynamics, my coping mechanisms. At the end, he assigned homework: keep a food journal, but not of calories or portions. Instead, note emotions before and after eating. The nutritionist, Ms. Chen, took a similarly measured approach. "Forget diets," she said. "We're relearning how to eat, how to recognize hunger and fullness, how to nourish rather than numb." The patterns in my food journal became painfully obvious. Boredom led to snacking, stress triggered takeout orders, loneliness resulted in late-night refrigerator raids. Most revealing was what happened after eating, the brief pleasure followed by crushing shame, which then triggered more eating to suppress the shame. A perfect, destructive cycle. Work became both salvation and challenge. A new client, a fitness app startup, requested me specifically for their branding. The irony wasn't lost on me. The fattest guy in the office, designing for a fitness company. Their founder, Marcus, was exactly what you'd expect. Former college athlete, all lean muscle and confidence. I want something that speaks to people like me, he explained during our initial meeting. People who are already fit, I asked, trying to mask my discomfort. No, he smiled. People who hate exercise but know they need it. I was 300 pounds after college. Football injury, depression, the works. I built this app because traditional fitness culture is toxic as hell. His revelation shifted something in me. If he could transform himself, not just physically but professionally, building his struggle into his success, what might be possible for me? That weekend, Nonna's cooking class focused on traditional celebration meals. In Italy, feast days are exactly that. Days, not every day. We save richness for special occasions. Lydia and I had fallen into a pattern of sitting together, our shoulders occasionally brushing as we chopped and stirred. After class, she suggested dinner at a new restaurant in Wicker Park. Like as friends, I clarified, heart pounding. Her smile was patient. I was thinking more like a date, but if you'd prefer friends. The restaurant was trendy but not pretentious. For the first time in years, I ordered what I actually wanted, not what I thought would cause the least judgment. When the food arrived, I practiced what Nonna and Miss Chen had been teaching, eating slowly, appreciating each bite, stopping when satisfied rather than stuffed. Lydia talked about her own struggles with body image, about growing up Puerto Rican in a predominantly white suburb where her curves were constantly commented on. Different battle, same war, she said. Always feeling like your body is public property, open for discussion. Walking her home, our hands brushed, then interlaced. The simple human connection, skin against skin, nearly brought tears to my eyes. How long had I denied myself this basic comfort, believing I didn't deserve it until I lost weight? 2 months into my new routine, weekly therapy, nutrition counseling, Nonna's cooking classes, and increasingly regular walks with Lydia, I had lost 23 pounds. Not dramatic by reality show standards, but sustainable. More importantly, my blood pressure had dropped and my resting heart rate had improved. But the real change was internal. I began to see myself as more than my size, as a talented designer, a loving grandson, maybe even a potential partner. The shame that had defined me for decades began to loosen its grip. Then came the phone call that threatened everything. Arthur, it's the nursing home. Your grandmother has had a stroke. The hospital corridor seemed to stretch endlessly, its antiseptic smell burning my nostrils as I rushed toward the ICU. My mother sat outside Nonna's room, her face drawn with worry and exhaustion. Our relationship had been strained for years, our conversations rarely moving beyond superficial pleasantries and her thinly veiled comments about my weight. How is she? I asked, slightly breathless from hurrying. Mum looked up, her eyes red-rimmed. Stable. The doctor says it was a minor stroke, but at her age... She trailed off, then seemed to really look at me. You've lost weight. Some, I acknowledged, unwilling to make this moment about me. Can I see her? Nonna looked small in the hospital bed, tubes and monitors creating a technological cocoon around her. Her eyes fluttered open when I took her hand. No crying, she whispered, her speech slightly slurred. I'm too stubborn to die. Despite everything, I laughed. I'm counting on that, Nonna. The doctor explained that while the stroke was relatively minor, Nonna would need rehabilitation and closer monitoring. Her living independently is no longer advisable, he said gently. My mother immediately began researching higher care facilities, but I had another idea. She could stay with me, I suggested. I have the spare bedroom. Mom looked skeptical. Arthur, you work full-time. You can barely take care of yourself. The old shame flared, but I pushed back. I'm not the same person I was 6 months ago, Mom. I can do this. Later, as we sat in the hospital cafeteria, picking at flavorless sandwiches, I broached the subject that had haunted our relationship for years. Nonna told me about Dad, about his weight struggles, and about what really happened with the accident. Mom's hand froze halfway to her mouth. She had no right. I needed to know. I met her gaze steadily. All these years, I thought you were ashamed of me because of how I looked, that I wasn't good enough. Ashamed. Her voice cracked. Arthur, I've been terrified. When your father died, you were already a chubby child. Watching you gain weight year after year, I couldn't lose you too. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I handled it all wrong. Instead of supporting you, I criticized. Instead of loving you as you were, I pushed for what I feared you needed to be. Odi, the conversation was painful but necessary, a lancing of a wound that had festered for decades. We weren't magically healed, but a door had opened. Nonna moved into my apartment 2 weeks later. My spare bedroom, long used for storage, became her new home. The arrangement forced me to completely restructure my life. No more working until midnight, no more spontaneous food deliveries when stress hit. Our evenings developed a rhythm, cooking together, eating at the actual dining table instead of in front of the TV, sharing stories I'd never heard about our family history. One evening, as we prepared a traditional risotto, Nonna said casually, "Your grandfather didn't die of a heart attack, you know." I paused, spoon mid-stir. "What?" "But Mum always said, Giuseppe took his own life," she said, her voice steady but sad. "After the war, what you now call PTSD, he couldn't escape the memories. Food was his comfort, then alcohol. When those stopped working," she made the sign of the cross. "In those days, suicide was shameful. So we said heart attack, and eventually, even your mother believed it." The revelation staggered me. 3 generations of Moretti men, all using food to fill emotional voids, all struggling with their weight, all carrying secrets. "Why are you telling me this now?" I asked. "Because you're breaking the cycle, Arthur. You're facing what the men in our family never could, the pain beneath the hunger." That night I called Lydia and shared everything about my grandfather, my father, the inherited trauma disguised as simple overeating. Our relationship had deepened over the months, but this level of vulnerability was new. "Thank you for trusting me with this," she said. "Would you like me to come over?" She arrived an hour later, and the 3 of us, Lydia, Nonna and I, stayed up late into the night, sharing family stories both painful and healing. The Marcus Fitness app project launched to critical acclaim, with my design work specifically praised for its inclusivity and emotional intelligence. My boss called me into his office, not to discuss my work, but something more surprising. "The client wants to feature you in their promotional materials," he explained, "your personal journey alongside your professional contribution." My immediate instinct was refusal. Despite losing nearly 60 pounds over 8 months, I was still obese by medical standards. The thought of putting my body on display made me physically anxious. "I'm not exactly their target demographic," I deflected. "Actually, you are," my boss countered. "They're specifically looking to reach people in the middle of their journeys, not just before and after success stories." I discussed it with Dr. Rivera in our weekly session. "What's the real fear here?" he asked. "Being a fraud," I admitted. "I'm not fixed. I still struggle every day." "And that's precisely why your story matters," he pointed out. "Perfection isn't relatable. Struggle is." The photo shoot was scheduled for the following month. In the meantime, life continued its new pattern. Morning walks with Lydia before work, cooking with Nonna in the evenings, therapy sessions, and nutrition check-ins. My mother began visiting weekly, our relationship tentatively healing as we learned to talk about feelings instead of food. The day before the photo shoot, I found Nonna looking through old photo albums. "Come see," she beckoned. She pointed to a picture I'd never seen. My father as a young man, perhaps my current age, standing proudly in front of his first construction project. He was heavy, yes, but his eyes shone with accomplishment. "He would be proud of you," Nonna said. "Not because of the weight you've lost, but because you found the courage he never did. To face the pain, to speak the truth, to break the cycle." The next day, standing in front of the camera, I felt a strange sense of peace. I wasn't showcasing a perfect body or a miracle transformation. I was simply sharing my truth, that healing happens in small steps, in daily choices, in the courage to face what food had been hiding. The campaign launched 3 months later. My before and after photos were genuine, but not dramatic. No shirtless poses or extreme weight loss. Just a man who looked progressively more comfortable in his own skin. The accompanying story detailed my journey not as a diet success, but as an emotional awakening. Messages flooded my social media from people who saw themselves in my story, not just those struggling with weight, but anyone using external solutions for internal wounds. The most unexpected message came from my mother. "I see now what I couldn't before. I'm sorry, and I'm proud of you." 1 year after Dr. Patel's warning, I returned for my annual physical. My weight loss had plateaued at 87 pounds, significant but not extreme. More importantly, all my health markers had normalized. "This is sustainable success," Dr. Patel said approvingly. "How are you feeling?" "Like I'm finally living instead of just existing," I answered honestly. That evening, Nonna, Mom, Lydia and I celebrated with a meal that honored both health and tradition, a feast by Italian standards, modest by American ones. As we raised our glasses in a toast, I realized the shocking truth of my transformation. It was never really about the weight. The real change was learning that I was worthy of love and belonging exactly as I was, at any size, and that realization, more than any diet or exercise plan, was what truly saved my life.